Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of The New Normal in association with Icon Accounting. Today, we have Ronan Gallagher, who is a friend of Dublin Tech Talks, but also Chief Product Officer for Alpha Fintech. Welcome to the show, Ronan.
Thanks, Gavin.
How's everything?
Yeah, pretty good. It's almost normal.
Good to hear.
The WFH sometimes is NSFW, but otherwise it's pretty good.
Yeah, sometimes you want to run away, but most times it's all right. Thanks, Mil, for joining us today. Do you want to give us a bit of a background about Alpha Fintech, what you do, what your product is, and kind of...
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. So Alpha Fintech, we're a payments as a service company. So we've developed a platform called the Alpha Hub. We primarily provide it to banks, payment companies, some travel companies. Our main focus area is a long way from here. It's down in Asia Pac. So we have clients in places like Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Malaysia. And we're primarily providing it as a payments, parcels, and fraud. So companies that want to provide e-commerce services, and especially now in the current normal, where everything is going online, you see a lot of companies now that they need to start selling products online that they've never done before. How are they going to do their shipping? If you've had companies that were doing click and collect, or they were doing return to store, what's that going to change for them? So it's a very interesting time for the industry.
And have you seen businesses quick to adapt? Obviously, it's adapt or die, but have you seen, you must have seen businesses that have done it quickly and well, and then people that have just resisted the change still, or just kind of come around to it?
So one of our clients, they're one of the largest department stores in Australia, and they've gone from, obviously having a mix of stores in the big cities and an online presence to being online only. They've had to, they've done a couple of major sales events, and we were seeing from one of those sales events, like the traffic going up like 300% for a weekend. But obviously for a company like that, there's a major adjustment, because if you were running a mix, maybe you were doing some click and collect, maybe at the option people would do returns to store. That's all have had to change. And online only, and a company like that, it's not going to replace, so they'll obviously be looking to get those stores up and running as soon as possible. But the online is not going to replace that store traffic 100%. And then even here, in Ireland, there was a good article in the Irish Times yesterday about even little, local small businesses, maybe food provision, starting to do, online orders, like in Dublin, Kish Fish, or doing next day delivery. So there's lots of business. Like you said, it is at the minute, it's adapt or die. It is a case of you need to get cash flow. And we see it, local restaurants doing, collection services. It's a very different thing. We got our dinner from one of our local restaurants we like on Saturday night. It's a very different thing of going in to the front door, collecting it in a bag and taking it home. Food was still good. The ambience, you miss the ambience and things. But there are local businesses that it is a case of adapting now. This is a kind of a time that, I mean, that phrase, I think it's from, Warren Buffett, you only know who's swimming naked when the tide goes out.
Yeah.
So you're going to really see, the businesses that are well run, well managed, and maybe that have a spark of creativity, that are going to do, they're going to succeed, and they are going to keep going.
Yeah, I just on the Buffett point, it's very interesting to see the reliance of a lot of businesses on week to week, or even month to month cash flow. Everybody felt that the businesses were doing well, and suddenly you give people 4 weeks away and some of the changes you hear out there that have been sweeping, and some of them are, disastrous for the businesses. So it might be a point, the learning from this downturn compared to the last one was, cash is always king, or revenue, forward revenue and different things.
Yeah, I mean that, especially if you move from, retail to online, maybe depending on the company you go with for your payment acquiring, maybe you're on a 7-day settlement. So you sell something today, you don't get paid for it till this day week. I'm seeing some anecdotal stories that maybe it's a new business going online, or maybe it's in certain industries that might be a 14-day period. So if you think of, you're selling stuff today, you're not actually going to get paid for it for 2 weeks. You have to pay your staff, you have to pay your suppliers. So managing that cash flow, and a lot of the local, maybe smaller businesses, they wouldn't have built up, large cash reserves. So cash flow is definitely king.
Yeah. And then in relation to the payments environment in general, or the future payments environment, and how the last 2-3 months, or even 6 months in some cases, how do you feel that's going to change how we spend, or how merchants look at money? I can't remember the last time I had money in my hand at this stage. It's been click with my phone, even, it's what's my PIN number at this stage. You're trying to remain as contactless as possible. How will we have to adapt as a business, or as a payments function?
Yeah, I mean that's most retail businesses, they have accepted cash, they've accepted cards. It's really interesting. Like my corner shop, you go around for a liter of milk, you get the newspaper, the big signs in the windows. I put it up on LinkedIn, like took a picture of the poster, encouraging contactless. And this is one of the kind of places that, understandably, in the past they would have said, they would have had a minimum payment amount of, say, €15.
Yeah.
Now you're going in, you're tapping for €3. And there's a great picture of the Tesco store down in Wexford handing out the pen pad on a hurl to keep the social distance. Yeah. But I think things like increasing the limit for contactless payments from €30 to €50. That's a very progressive move, because it brings in more of those transactions. I think they said the average debit card transaction earned was €44. So it brings in more of those transactions into the contactless space. It's not that it's going to be seamless and turned on overnight, because you saw the bank said, okay, it's going to take a couple of weeks. Companies like Tesco came out and said, well, they're not going to be able to do it immediately, because they have to go around and physically update every terminal in the store. So some of these things, take time, but definitely the move to contactless, I think, is going to be here to stay. And like I said, if people, they're just used to tap, going back to the ATM to get out your money, to pay with cash, I think is definitely going to reduce. Whether it'll drive more adoption of mobile, Google Pay and Android Pay. I think a lot of the people that maybe are getting into contactless now, they perhaps haven't been the target market for some of those mobile payment mechanisms. But then it's the grannies and granddads who haven't used Zoom or FaceTime before. They're maybe getting adapted to these new technologies. So once they're able to go out and about, I think there will be people encouraged to try new things.
On that very point, I've onboarded my 74-year-old father-in-law into Revolut. He wanted a card that was able, because he's not trustworthy of using his card out in machines or different things like that. So he wanted a card that he could use in a shopping environment that wasn't his main debit card, because he pays with cash with everything. So that new market will open up to a lot of those merchants that, want that. There's an environment now, they'll get used to paying with cards, and they'll forget, he was cash always.
Yeah. I think companies like Revolut, they've done a couple of interesting things. We've seen within your app, you can now get a virtual card number. You can get a one-time card number. So if you're buying something online, and maybe it's with a store you haven't, you're not familiar with or haven't used before, generating a one-time card number. Okay, the transaction goes bad, your details haven't been stolen. And then I think as well in the, maybe you might call it more the informal economy, the likes of Revolut as a payment mechanism is going to be used more and more. So this morning I did my online gym class via Zoom. Usually I go to one on a Tuesday and Thursday at 6:15 in the local GA club, which is closed now. But now making those payments for those classes via Revolut. So I think you're going to see more of those, maybe whether it's local food deliveries or things like that, that maybe people, they're not at the stage where they can set up a payment gateway or payment facilitation on a website, but they can take a payment by Revolut or maybe a PayPal transfer to their email address.
It's that we talked about a few of our talks before around the frictionless processes, and people will adapt frictionless processes a lot quicker. So that drive for digital by businesses, it doesn't always have to be, as you said, that front end payment portal. It can be with technology at the moment. It can be other devices or other payment channels for but there is a need to be able to adapt into a digital world. And
absolutely. I think now we'll in a way, what peer-to-peer used to mean will in a way almost be redefined a little bit. And, it's not so much we're talking about Bitcoin wallets or things like that, it's me, I don't know, I owe you €20 for something. Okay, I'm going to send it to you, your Revolut. I'm going to send it to your PayPal. So that, how, like I said, informal transactions, more and more of that will become digital. And really that whole, if the businesses want to thrive and they want to increase their customers, they really do need to go digital. And, at the minute, for example, we're going through a process with a financial institution and, having to get a physical hard copy of a letter after we'd already sent in the soft copy. So businesses are going to really need to look at, well, how do they onboard people? And the likes of Revolut, digital onboarding, or if it's, KBC, quite slick onboarding process for opening an account. And businesses that want to thrive, do need to adapt to that and do need to be digital first going forward.
And how as a payment business yourself, or a fintech business, have you had to adopt yet into that world, or is there a kind of your product is robust enough at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we primarily sit behind. So we're a technology that our customers, primarily banks, offer to their customers, and we're primarily an API first company. So everything we do, everything processing payments, if it's doing a shipping request or fraud request, everything's exposed by an API. Onboarding a customer, it's all API based. So we would hopefully describe ourselves as a digital first company, and it's getting the market to move that way in the future.
Okay, well, and just a bit more, just around being a digital, like, how's the team set up? Are you all in Ireland? Is it a kind of,
We're pretty disparate. We have a team in Ireland who are all working from home. Before this, we had an office in East Point, but half the team worked from home anyway. We have people in Melbourne, we have people in Argentina, our headquarters in Singapore. Well, we've had interesting things where, we had people in different countries, and then, the lockdowns start to happen. People are racing across borders to get home. So for a couple of weeks, there was kind of an interesting thing, wondering, okay, is this person going to get back home? They've gone on holidays. They have to be quarantined for 2 weeks to get back to the office. So it's been an interesting thing. Even actually, one of my team in Dublin is, he went home to India, but he's effectively stuck there now for a couple of more weeks till the lockdown is lifted there. But yeah, we're all, it's Google Hangouts and Slack, Skype, you name it. We're running the gamut of these tools.
You might tell me to stop, but or no comment. Are you building at the moment? Are you maintaining? What kind of, it's a lot of businesses are keeping the lights on, or just, business as usual. Have you put a halt on new releases? Where are you at business wise?
No, I mean, we've a big project scheduled to go live in two weeks time. So that's full steam ahead on that. I mean, definitely there's things in the payments world like Visa, MasterCard, they're the two big guys. They have what's known as an April and October release. Both of them, they've postponed their April release. There's other mandates in the payment industries are being deferred. So there are definitely projects in the payments world being let's say postponed or delayed slightly, but it's full steam ahead for us. We're still onboarding new people. Obviously, it's not done not done face to face. It'll be a while before we get them into the office and sit down, and maybe even longer before you can shake hands. But yeah, we're still onboarding people around the world.
And have you found that, has that been, it's different but similar, or has there been challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that little bit different of, I in a lot of things, even in, business meetings, sometimes, nothing beats a face-to-face to get to know the person, or, talk about, doing a whiteboard session or something. You're in the room, you can brainstorm. You can do all of those things digitally to a certain extent, but there's, I think, a little bit missing. And in terms of the recruitment piece, I mean, like we're talking now, obviously you can have these types of conversations with people. I don't think you really get to know somebody till you sit in a room with them and spend some time with them. You find out, the annoying habits, they tapping the pen constantly off the desk. So maybe some of these people, we brought on, they'll be driving each other up the walls when they finally get to an office. But I mean, like as a, if you look at lots of companies like, the Shopify operation in Ireland where, everybody works remotely. I think we'll see that a lot of businesses will maybe change how they thought about, how work should be actioned. The idea that, well, I want to see you in here 5 days a week. I want to see you here before 9 a.m. I want to see you, you should be the last one leaving. I mean, like all of that. And we don't have a dog, so there's been no dog appearing in the conference calls. Lots of kids of the warning sign on the doors that don't come in. But I think that the nature of work and how people are expected to do that. I mean, the idea of spending a 2-hour commute in the future. If we've got the infrastructure here that enables people to work from home and work remotely. I got to think that a lot of businesses in Ireland and around the world are going to think about, well, once the current situation is over, do they enable more flexible policies in terms of where people work? Now, on the flip side, there's a lot to be said for the social interaction of being in the office. Yeah. I think there's a lot of elements of creativity that you pick up in a snippet of a conversation. You say, hey, why don't we do something in a different way that is lost when you're not in the same room. But I think that in the future, I'd like to think that lots more businesses will take things in a more balanced approach.
Yeah, we did Corporate did a survey of CFOs, and the cost of going remote, it has to be justified long term as well. So there's going to be a focus of businesses to justify spending 200, laptops distributed around Ireland or whatever, But it's actually surprising to see how many businesses weren't ready on the remote options of people still using desktops, or not being virtualized, or that kind of environment. It was you'd think most companies, I haven't had a desktop in about 6 or 7 years, you think companies just will have that, but a lot of companies have not gone 100% into the kind of work from anywhere environment, but I think that has changed. And I don't think...
Yeah, I know, I think it will. But you're right, there is an investment that if it was a company maybe doing more of a back office type process, maybe there's a bit of, attrition in the business, having everybody virtual or everybody remote for that. You're right that there is a cost. There is a cost with it, but I think there will be certain companies that will suit very well.
Last couple of things in relation to payments now and kind of even things that businesses are trying to do to survive around pre-purchasing vouchers and different things like that. If they don't come back, what's the kind of environment there to get refunds? Is that a merchant side of things or what?
I mean, I think it's there's some very interesting things. I mean, even from I involved in my local GA club. For example, we were due to have an Easter camp 2 weeks ago. We had people registered, prepaid. Obviously, camp can't go ahead. We've had to refund everybody. There's a cash flow element there. I mean, I know there's a drive at the minute for maybe perhaps buying vouchers for businesses to keep them open. There is a risk that if the business doesn't reopen, that voucher is generally worthless. If the business doesn't reopen, you're not going to get a refund. So then you're looking at contacting your bank and initiating a dispute or a chargeback, which will take, there'll be a sort of a cycle to that. You have to get supporting letters and evidence together. But then ultimately I'll come back to the acquirer of say the restaurant or the business that sold the voucher. I mean, I think in places like travel, that's going to be especially interesting. I mean, before this all kicked off, we saw obviously, Flybe went into administration in the UK. This morning, Virgin Australia, who I've flown with a couple of times, they've gone into administration. You've got a lot of these airlines, they might be pre-selling seats 11 months in advance. So you've got a lot of potential money out there. We had a flight to Bratislava in mid-March with Ryanair. We got refunded, but now I hear that Ryanair are changing their policy that they're issuing vouchers. So we've got a flight to Northern Italy in July, which I don't think we'll be getting on. So there's going to be a lot of, I think once this is over, there is going to be a bit of, you want to call it maybe fallout, because there will be, services weren't able to be rendered. Maybe somebody who's paying for a gym subscription. What happens if the gym doesn't reopen? People, if there are other kind of services, health insurance premiums, there's going to be some rebate, whether it's going to be some rebate on motor insurance premiums. But there's lots of services people were potentially paying forward for. Even the likes of tickets to shows or tickets to sporting events. I mean, Leinster Champions Cup quarter-final didn't happen. Not sure if it's going to happen this year. I know Ticketmaster and Live Nation in the US, there's been a bit of flack in the last couple of days about their policies there. So it'll be interesting to see for all of these shows that are being cancelled, what the ticketing agencies or what the venues are going to do there.
So just to round up things, payments 2021, how does the environment look, or even 2020 come September, October, how does things look, or what's the kind of future going to be?
I mean, increasingly it's going online. I think you'll find it's going to take some time for customer confidence to come back of actually going to the high street. If you think of Grafton Street on Christmas Eve the last couple of years.
Yeah.
It's Plodia, so it's packed with people. Are people this Christmas going to still be that confident to be, in that kind of environment? So I will say that there's definitely going to be more and more businesses that if they're not already focused online, have to invest in that. And, you know, there's lots of Irish businesses like eShop World. They provide these sort of online platforms for a lot of brands. So there's going to be a lot of, I think, investment in online platforms. Obviously, an increasing use of digital payments, contactless payments, not without some risks. I think the whole concept of tapping, you know, there's a lot to be said that taking your money from your wallet, you actually know how much you're spending each time. You know, you have a vague idea. Well, okay, that's 2 hours salary I'm after spending here.
Yeah.
But doing the constant tap, you know, I think it's going to be, you know, interesting in terms of people perhaps maybe lose the concept of what the value of money is and what they've actually paid for. But it's definitely it's online, full steam ahead, and really the you know, the high street, you know, to get people in, it will be about, I think, experiences. You know, it'll be about the smells of products. It'll be, you know, like you said, you know, the smell of a bakery when you go to a supermarket. You know, what are department stores going to do to entice people in the door? So the shopping experience as an event and not just a transaction.
I think lots of businesses have been trying to go with the experience for a while, but I think this, again, it's the adapt or die type of mentality at the moment. Thanks, Mill, for your time, Ronan. I will put all your contact details and the website for the business underneath the post. Thanks, Mill, for giving us your time, and we'll speak to you soon.
Delighted, Gavin. Okay, take care. Stay home, save lives.